Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Maya Herring, and I am the Our Town Specialist with the National Endowment for the Arts. We are so excited to have so many new folks joining us today for our first of several offerings through the Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Program. Just as a little bit of background, I want to just orient folks to this program, which was initiated in 2016 as a partnership with the local Initiative Support Corporation, otherwise known as LISC, and the National Endowment for the Arts. And it was an effort to assess the unique needs of local governments and cultural leaders that were working in the creative placemaking space. For many years, this TA program was led by Lynn McCormick, and through her instrumental leadership force, she really helped to build out and develop this program. And Lynn has a new and exciting role as the executive director of the Rhode Island State Arts Council. And that's wonderful. And we have some fresh faces, some new faces for folks to meet on our call today, which we are very excited about, as they both have extensive knowledge and deep roots in the creative placemaking field. And we also have some familiar faces. So before we get too far into everything, I want to first introduce our partners on the LISC team, and I'll start with Melissa Kim.
Thanks, Maya. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Kim. I am heading up the LISC end of the Our Town Creative Placemaking team. I'm also the Director of Community Impact at LISC. We are, as Maya said, so excited to be with you in this space. We have a fantastic workshop planned with Flannel and Blade coming up in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to let you know that this is just the first of a series of other offerings that will also all be awesome. We have monthly office hours coming up in August. We have peer exchanges, we have workshops, and we always have the sign up consultations that you can sign up for anytime. And that's a process by which we would meet with you and then match you with one of our really amazing resource team members. We have about 21 of them kind of on standby just to talk to you. So the dates are coming really soon. Please sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and that way you will get the latest information. So as we get rolling on today, wanted to offer you a few community guidelines to help us strive towards a more welcoming and affirming convening. So first, feel free to change your name tag to first name, pronoun, and project location. You can do that by clicking on the button in the upper right-hand corner of your window. We will be recording the presentation, but not the conversations. And we'll also be posting it on our website and sending it out in a subsequent newsletter. We will spend some time in breakout rooms. So that's a time for you to listen deeply, make no assumptions, and also, just to get to know each other and have some fun. We want you to connect with each other. So feel free to use the chat. This is your time to, just to talk about your projects, to get to know each other. So we want you to take full advantage of the chat. And then, as always, if you want a consultation, just email Kari at cmorales2@lisc.org. So next, in the chat, you'll see a link to a map that's maintained by Native Land Digital. And that's an important reminder that the places we call home first belong to Indigenous people. So we encourage you to visit the website to learn about the land you inhabit. And now we also encourage you to say hi. So in the chat, please write your name, where you're located, and one word describing how you're entering the space today. So if I were typing, I would write in, I'm Melissa Kim. I'm from the land of Lenni Lenape, now known as Philadelphia, and I am coming excited. I also want to introduce my teammates. I think a lot of you already know Margie. So I'm gonna ask Margie to say hello.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces. And I'm checking in from the land of the Miami and Shawnee in Cincinnati. And I guess I'm feeling like the old girl.
Thanks, Margie. I also want to introduce Kati.
Hi, everyone. Calling in from the land of the Potawatomi, also known as Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the Creative Placemaking Officer at Local Industry Support Corporation, and I am also feeling very excited.
Thanks, Kati. And now I'm going to hand it over to Thomas and Westlake from Flannel and Blade.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to meet you. I'm Thomas Young. I use he, him pronouns. I'm based out of the land of the Lenape, also known as Central New Jersey. And if you're from New Jersey and don't believe that Central New Jersey exists, well, we can have a conversation about it afterwards. No, I'm just kidding. It's so wonderful to meet you. I'm with Flannel and Blade. I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm joined with my colleague, Westlake, who you'll be hearing from in a little bit. And I'm so excited to be here today. I have a little bit of a raspy throat, so I hope you do forgive me for that. And I think we'll be just fine. Hopefully, if everyone can hear me okay, we'll keep going with our time today. So here today is our workshop. It is called Telling Your Story. And we're so excited to help you folks tell your story. Storytelling is really important to us at Flannel and Blade, and I hope, and I know actually that it's important to you folks. You wouldn't be in this space if you didn't believe in the power of storytelling and the power of art and culture to really move communities. And so I want to just start off by saying, thank you for being in this space with us today. In addition to working in a communications agency, I'm also a practicing theater artist. And so I really believe strongly in the power of storytelling, especially with theater. And so I appreciate everyone being here today with us. So what are we going to do today? Let's kind of figure that out. So we have a couple things planned for the next hour and a half. First of all, we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction about who we are at Flannel and Blade and why we're here. We have a bit about storytelling 101. We're going to take us back to the roots of what stories are, why they matter, and how they can impact your work at your Our Town program. We have a bit of an elevator pitch workshop. I'm sure everyone's heard of an elevator pitch, or if not, you'll hear much more about it later. But it's really about getting us down to the roots, the bare minimum of what the essence of your Our Town program is, and how to share it in a very succinct and easy to understand way that can then be applied to many different forms of media within your communications work, right? So before we even get to social media, before we get to websites, before we get to blog posts and press and PR, let's get down to the root of what is your story. And then you can move on from there to actually shout it out from the rooftops through all of those amazing and exciting channels. We're going to talk about the difference between story and narrative as sort of a way to frame up the differences between that elevator pitch, the soul of what you do versus how you talk about it to the world, right? And so we're going to kind of differentiate that a little bit. And then we're going to talk a little bit about communications channels. So those social media and PR and press and websites and things like that. How can you apply that story to those different narratives along the way? And then we're going to follow up with some housekeeping. You know, where Westlake and I are part of the resource team, along with some amazing other people. I know Margie put in the chat a great website where you can check out the resource team that is available for you folks through your development over the next year of this technical assistance program. And so hopefully this isn't the last that you hear of us. We are around to help do some more tailored work with you today. We are not going to come out of today with an editorial calendar. We are not going to come out of today with a press release. Today, we're really just getting to our roots about what is your story and how can we tell it better through different channels. And so Westlake and I are really excited to do that with you today. Hello, let's get started about who we are. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to get into some breakout groups. We're also recognizing that this is the first time that you folks have been together as a cohort. And so we're actually going to ask you to get into some groups. Gally is going to get us, our wonderful tech Zoom technician Gally is here with us today. She's breaking you out currently into some random groups, and we're going to ask you all to sort of self-facilitate for about 10 minutes of time. So we're going to ask yourself to introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, where you're from. If you use that handy little link to the native land website, you can introduce the land that you're currently on. We love this little prompt of tell us briefly about a scent that you remember fondly from your childhood. Maybe that's fresh cut grass or your grandmother's cooking or something like that. So if you want to share a scent, and then also briefly describe the work that you do. So feel free to drop links to your social medias, to articles that you've been a part of, to your website. It's a really good opportunity for you to have a little small group of about 5 people today that you can share this time with, and hopefully you can grow some stronger relationships with over the course of our time together in the next year. So once again, name, pronouns, where you're from, land acknowledgement, if you know what land you're on, a scent from your childhood, and a little bit about the work that you do. So if everyone is ready, Gally, do you think we're all set to go into the breakout groups now?
Yes.
I'm going to put in that's awesome. Thank you. Gally's amazing, everybody. We love working with Gally. I'm going to put these questions in the chat so you have them if you so choose to use them. Again, self-facilitate, make sure everybody's having a chance to listen and have a chance to speak. It's about 2 minutes per person or so. We're going to try to come back by about 2:20, maybe 2:25-ish, so even 13 minutes. We give a little bonus time for you all today to get to know each other. So take that time. Actually, just 1 second. I am just kidding. You're going to come back at 2:20 Eastern time. I'm so sorry about that. So 8 minutes. We'll do this. Everybody have fun. Good luck. And we'll see you in a little bit. 3, 2, 1. Go to your breakout groups. You should see a prompt right now to join with a blue button. You can go ahead and click that button. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and I will help you out. Good luck, everybody. And I think we're good to pause. Thanks, Gally. I think Gally. Welcome back, everyone. We'll see everybody in just another 30 seconds or so. I'm curious while we're waiting, can everyone put any of your favorite smells from childhood in the chat? Did everyone get a chance to talk about that? I always love to see what people say to that question. Awesome, more people are joining. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Apple pie, ooh, yes. Ooh, yummy food, Pernell, yes. Any other good smells in the chat that we got through? Hi, everybody, it's good to see you. Freshly baked peanut butter cookies, Brenna, ooh, that sounds really good. Awesome, thank you. Oh, grandmother's perfume. This is so wonderful. Well, thanks everybody. I hope that was nice just to get a chance to say hello to some of your colleagues. It's so good to have you back. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Thomas. I'm with Flannel and Blade, and I'm so excited to have you all here today. If you notice in the chat, we're all putting not just random nouns, but we're putting our favorite smells from our childhood, and I'm already smelling these great things. So thank you all so much for sharing those. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, can everybody see this okay? Awesome. So Thank you so much. A little bit about flannel and blade. You've probably heard this term already and you're going, what in the heck is that? Well, good question. We are a communications agency. It's myself, our co-founders are myself, Thomas Young, my colleague here, Sarah Westlake, and we have two other founders who are not with us today, Beth Davenport and Tamika Nikki Andrews. And we make up our powers combined to create flannel and blade. We've been around for about a year and a half now, but we have over 6 decades, I think, of experience in communications. And what we believe really strongly, we are a queer-owned, BIPOC-owned, intergenerational communications agency, and we work with and hire incredible artists from around the country, prioritizing BIPOC, queer, and women and rural folks to the front of what we do. And so we love working with folks from around the country who have a heart and soul for this work of telling incredible stories in this space. And so we were asked to be on the resource team with you folks here by LISC to help you tell your stories as well. If you want to learn more about us, you can find us at flannelandblade.com. And I hope this isn't the last we talk to you folks as well. Enough about flannel and blade. Let's talk about why we're here today. So this workshop that we're starting here is telling your story. We're here to provide sort of an introduction to storytelling. And like I said before, I bet all of you have a heart for storytelling in general. We want to review why storytelling is important and how you can use these tools that we're about to introduce. We want to exercise how to tell your story in a quick elevator pitch exercise, and we'll go over that in a bit. We're going to learn to apply your story to various narratives and communications channels. And by channels, we of course mean things like social media, PR, websites, and things like that. Margie, I see, is that your hand raised or is that a wave? I can't tell. Oh, just a wave. Hi, Margie. I love it. Awesome. And, feel free throughout this presentation, folks, to pop some questions or thoughts in the chat. Also keep putting those great smells in the chat too. It's really fun to see what everybody's answers are for that. If anyone's wondering, because you didn't ask, my favorite smell from childhood is crayons. I used to color a lot with my sisters and I just love that fresh peck of Crayola crayon smell. I say crayons because I'm from the Midwest. Shout out to people in Illinois. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Westlake, who can introduce herself a bit and talk a little bit about storytelling 101. Take it away, Westlake.
Hey. Okay, so I'm Westlake. I'm the other half of part of Flannel and Blade as a founder. And you may also know me from Art Place America, where I worked for the last 4 years until what we used to call a sunset, but we like to call it a supernova, because I'm hoping that this is one of those little comets that's just landed here in the NEA and with LISC. And with multiple other of our friends we're working with currently as Flannel and Blade. So I'm deeply immersed in creative placemaking, obviously, and why I'm so interested in storytelling and elevator pitches and things like that is that it took me quite a while when I started off at Art Place to understand this term creative placemaking, and I didn't really know how to explain that to my friends. And when I was trying to explain it in a way, that other people explained it, very clever people explained it, they just looked at me like, what are you talking about? So in the end, I just knew I had to write my own elevator pitch for what creative placemaking was. And I decided that it was about artists and culture bearers doing amazing things in community, moving the needle on very specific community issues using art and culture. And people could understand that. So what we want to do during this workshop and in any kind of work that we do with you afterwards and with the handouts that we're going to supply is really get you to be able to tell your story about what your Artarm project is. And congratulations, by the way, on getting funding via the Artarm project. It's jumped you into a very honored cohort of people, I think. And we're really honored to be on this journey with you. Next slide, please. So what we want to do is give you a little bit of intro about why we're called Flannel and Blade. It's kind of a backhanded way of like how we justify our name. But what we think of is every sort of communications project, every sort of storytelling project, it starts with a kind of a tangled ball of yarn. There's a whole bunch of stuff about your organizational history. With you lot, you're in multiple disciplines and multiple partnerships for your Artarm project. So there's multiples of those. There's the communities that you serve. There's the audiences that you have. There's how this work folds into the work of your organizations writ large and the other things that you do on a daily basis. So there's lots of things to work with in this yarn. What we then want to do is turn that yarn, untangle it, and turn it into a piece of flannel, which is your story, which is the piece that we will then cut out these other bits that will form the basis of your outward-facing communications, which are going to be things like the website, the social media, any further grant applications, any press and PR, anything else that you want to do. Next slide, please, Tom. Yeah, as Thomas says, we have merchandise of flannel and blade pajamas. We do not. So this is a very particular group of people, right? And which I am very familiar with via NEA, via Art Place America, via creative placemaking. And so I know the challenges that you will be facing, thinking about the way that you had to put your application together, the way that you applied for the funding, the ways in which that you have to kind of steal time from other bits of your organization in order to put time into this project. So I understand the challenges of it, and I also know that the benefits of getting your story right are going to pay dividends for both this project and for your organizations in general. So the benefits of getting the story right in the first place, as you probably already all well know, is it's about getting more information out there to people. So it's talking to folks, press, networks, gatherings, letting people understand what your project is, why it's important, and why they need to care and be interested, and why they need to either volunteer, donate, or somehow think differently about this project. We want to encourage and excite possible future grant makers and donors. So you've just got this grant from NEA. Awesome. We want you to get loads more grants. Like once you get funded, if this is the first time of a big funding for you, or the last of a long line of many types of funding, there's always going to be more that you will need for future projects and for this project if it goes on to other iterations. We want to make sure to inspire your peers, your audiences, and future generations, and create content for digital media. So like all of the outputs, social, website, blogs. And it's super important that you get your story straight internally before you even think about sharing it externally. And you've done a lot of work on this already because you got this grant. And if you hadn't been able to tell the story of what you are doing with this project, you wouldn't have. So you're already, I think, probably 90% there, but then there's probably now other stakeholders from your organization that you need to bring on board and have you all singing from the same sheet. And then, of course, once we are all singing off the same sheet, then that is when we kind of bring other people and general public and future funders and everyone else that we want to talk to on board.
And Westlake, if I can jump in with you. Oops, I think I reviewed. Am I still Spotlight? Sorry.
You are Spotlight. Yeah,
okay,
please do, Tom.
Sorry. Just to chime in really quickly. One anecdote that we like to share sometimes, we're working with this nonprofit that we won't disclose, but we did a really simple survey and we surveyed their entire staff and their board, and it was about 30 collective people. It was a really simple survey and it just said, who are you and what do you do? And y'all, we got 30 different answers. I mean, literally, right? And this is an established nonprofit of people who know what they're doing and they know what they're talking about, and the board really cares about this work. But I'm seeing some smiles in your cameras right now because you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So if you can't get your story straight, how are you expecting for an audience to get your story straight, right? And so that's why we're getting back to the basics first. Before you start your social media calendar, think about who are you, what do you do, why do you do it, and for whom. Get it really tight. And then you can actually start to share it out and shout it from the mountains. So anyway, just wanted a quick anecdote there. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for reminding me about that one. Yeah, it's true. It's like so often we think of ourselves as comms whisperers because what we're doing is we come in, people put out an RFP and say, we need a website, we need social media, we need a rebrand or whatever it is. But we always go back 3 or 4 steps where we say, okay, you may need those things. Let's see if you do. But first of all, let's find out who you are, what you do and who you do it for and what you want to have happen. So sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you just don't have time to really interrogate those questions. You just get on with it and you're working really hard and you're delivering the programs and you're doing all the stuff. But if you can get your whole organization kind of back to basics on who you are and what you do, then that will be helpful. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do a little bit of a workshop where we're going to talk about elevator pitches, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's the old story of you're in an elevator with a film producer and you can pitch them in the space it takes the elevator to go from the ground floor to the, say, the 10th floor, maybe a minute, where you can pitch them. So different, slightly different for us because we're not pitching a film, probably, but we are using that same methodology to really hone in without thinking about it too hard about what it is your project is doing. And what was that you said in the chat, Tom? Oh yes, so pens and paper out. So what we'd like to encourage you to do on these is don't get too precious about it and don't think about it too much. If you've got a piece of paper, like literally take it, like have a messy piece of paper and just scribble on it with a pencil, because this is just to help you starting to get thinking. If you don't have a pen and paper handy, pop open a notepad on your computer, or, you know, gouge it into the table with a nail if that's what you've got handy. Does everyone have access to something to write down on or can think about the thing in their mind? Okay, great. So what we're going to want you to do is we're going to have you write down 2 to 3 goals of communicating about aspects of your Artown project that you'd like to accomplish. So it's about what do you want to tell people about the opportunity that you are now funded to get into. So communications goals, I'd love to know 2 or 3. I also would like you to write down a few bullet points about what you want people to understand and think and feel about your project. So this is one that, you know, you don't often get asked, like, how do I want people to feel when they read about this issue that I am about to embark on doing something about? And then I also want you to write down a few bullet points of any actions that you want your reader to take. So we want to know, you know, what is it we want to tell them? How do we want people to like receive that information and feel about it? And then what type of action do you want them to take after that? So Tom, do we do?
Yeah, 3 minutes. I'm going to put some music on. If you don't like the music, you can mute it, but I hope it's kind of nice. And I'll let you know when that's all done. So it's quiet writing time, everybody. Hope you like, maybe just a nice moment to just think to yourself and quiet down a little bit. Here we go. Enjoy. Just about a minute left, everybody, about 60 seconds. About 10 seconds left. Just last little thoughts on your paper. And we'll have that slow fade out.
Wow, I really think Thomas should get a job on local radio.
It's my NPR voice.
So good. I'd listen to you. Well, thank you for playing with us and scribbling down some stuff there. I hope that that was interesting and kind of maybe brought up some things for you, and just having the time, even a few minutes, to just be like, oh, what are we doing? What do we want people to think and feel? What do we want people to do? Is sometimes just no one ever asks you to just think that through. So normally I would like to hear back from a few people about what came up for them, but we don't actually have time on this one. But we might get a chance to talk about that a little bit more in our breakout rooms in a bit. Next slide, please, Thomas. So we're going to go into an exercise in a second about this elevator pitch. So with that little bit of work that you've just done, I'm hoping that that will kind of give you some information and some background on how you can pitch yourself if you were trying to pitch it to, say, a funder in an elevator. So it's really about, what is this? What do you do? What do you believe in? Why is it important? What problem is it trying to solve? Or what opportunity is it taking advantage of? What are any solutions or the impact? How will you know when you've been successful? What makes this project unique, if it is a unique project? And always thinking about the importance of simple, unique, and direct language. I'm sure that you've seen in the past many sort of vision statements, mission statements on websites that go on like pages, and it's like, okay, everybody's already lost interest like 3 words in. So it's kind of everybody's attention span is like a goldfish these days, and the average reading age is 8 years old. So we've got to kind of always remember that we can spend, a month crafting incredible copy, and then people, it's difficult for people to become, be able to be interested in it or capture their attention with all the stuff that's going on to have it go into their brains. So that being said, we're going to jump into the little elevator pitch Mad Lib. So what we're going to do here, I'm sure you're all familiar with Mad Libs. So we're going to say name of the project. So butterfly project is putting more butterflies on the walls in downtown Lansing. For who is that? It is for the residents of downtown Lansing. And it's doing it in downtown Lansing because butterflies are cool, and we want to create community around butterflies. And it's going to happen by the sort of coalescing of your superpowers. So if that makes sense, Thomas, is there anything I missed on the Mad Lib pitch?
No, and if we're gonna give you about 5 minutes for this. It doesn't have to be the exact format of this, but it's a good way to kind of prompt you here. I'm sure your unique project is not going to fit perfectly into this mold, but take some time to write through this. We'll give you about 5 minutes. I think we have just enough time. Maybe I think I have to do 4 actually, unfortunately. But we'll get that music going back up, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. Sounds good, everybody? Good luck.
And again, don't overthink it. Just put it out.
About halfway through, 2 minutes left on your drive with NPR. Just about a minute left. About 30 seconds on this midnight drive with your radio host, Thomas Young. And the slow fade out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Thomas. I actually did not know that you had such a good voice for radio. I know, you know, the good joke is you've got a good face for radio, but you have a good voice for radio. Thank you so much for playing with us again on the Mad Lib pitch. We are actually going to give you some time now to share out, right, Tom? We have the time to get back into your groups. You'll go end up back into the same group that you were in just before. For anyone who's just joined us, who joined us before, subsequently, you will get put into a group when we do that part. But what we want you to do is kind of refer back to those exercises and think about the ways in which that you introduced your project and yourself in the first round, and if any of that is different or changed, or you've thought about it in a slightly different way, or anything that you want to reflect on or that you noticed. So I'll shut up and I'll turn back over to you, Tom.
A good prompt, folks, is saying, I'm Thomas and my organization does elevator pitch, and just try it on and see how you feel. And again, take a minute to reflect. We have 10 minutes in these groups, folks. So it's more than enough time. I hope everyone gets a chance to share at least once. And then if you want, for the rest of your time remaining, have those little discussions about how that feels. Does it feel like a good one? How do people want to react to each other? So Gally, are we good to go back into those groups?
Yes, we are.
Cool. Gally's going to put you in those groups, folks. You're going to press that blue join button, and we'll be back at 2:55 Eastern. We'll see you in a little bit. Goodbye. I think we can start. There she is. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're going to wait another 10 seconds or so for folks to come back. I hope that was a good and full conversation. Awesome. Just a couple more seconds. Y'all missed my terrible joke, so you dodged a bullet there, I think, a little bit. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome back. I'm sorry. I love to see that nobody came, not too many people came back too early, which means it was good conversation there. You know, we have to move on to some other things, folks, but I wanted to take a minute to ask, does we have like maybe time for 2 people to share out their elevator pitches? Does anyone want to be brave and unmute themselves?
Or even kind of share how it went and
How it went.
what came up, and was it hard? Was it easy? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
Marty,
I wish Gina would. She has to leave soon, but if she's
Gina.
still here from West Virginia.
Gina, do you feel like you're being brave today? No worries if not. I don't actually see Gina. I don't know if she's here anymore.
Well, I have to leave to go to another accessibility webinar that was scheduled before I got this one, but and also because after I get off with that, I have to do a press release on the project that we are doing that is being partly funded by the Our Town grant out in North Dakota. So I can give my spiel. I told my group what it was. It needs some writing work, but it's an earthwork that we're doing that's going to be put in North Dakota in the top left-hand corner of the state, so right close to Canada there. But okay, here's my, whatever you wanted to call it, the sentence. This Writing Rock earthwork project by North Dakota Council on the Arts, the North Dakota Heritage Society, Historic Society, and a couple others that I can't forget to give credit to, creating a unique space, because it's two eccentric round rings that people can walk around that are going to be built stories high, that frame the sky, but also you can see the rolling hills of North Dakota that are flat, but yet lots of rolling going on. Anyway, creates a unique space for North Dakotans and all people alike to enjoy, appreciate, and celebrate the historic grounds and endless skies, and help preserve and respect this area of the world for years and years to come. So it's hard to do that in a sentence, but anyway, I'm excited for it to happen. Hopefully next summer. So
Wow.
Awesome. That's
Well,
great.
whatever it was that you did when you were figuring out that elevator pitch, it makes me want to come and see it. So that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of it. And as well as that, I'm fully appraised of who's doing it and what it's for, as well as it being beautiful. So it's like, that's exactly what we wanted to get to. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah,
Thank
you so much. I appreciate it. Time is a ticking clock, and so I will have to move on, folks. But thank you so much for being bravery. I really appreciate it. And so, folks, we're going to move into the last part of our presentation today. I hope that was beneficial for you all, just to have that moment of exercise. You can imagine 5 minutes is not enough. There's that famous saying that we always quote, which is, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. And so that's absolutely the case. Writing something short and pithy that connects to a lot of audiences really quickly is really, really hard to do. So if you're feeling like you came out of this going, I don't know if I like my sentence or whatever, don't beat yourself up. It's really hard to do that. And honestly, it is a group project. Wordsmithing something really tight is next to impossible, right? And so I would encourage you to keep this enthusiasm, and because this is really important, because we're going to talk about why it's important right now. Here's my segue. Do you like that? So story versus narrative. This is applying your elevator pitch. So here's a framework that you can folks might want to think about when you think about your story and your narrative. And so we're going to define these here today. I'm sure there's a million different types of definitions for this, but this is just to kind of frame up our thinking today. Story is the content of the events, characters, settings, etc. Right? This is the meat and potatoes of what you're talking about, right? This is the essence of what you've created, which is your elevator pitch, right? What is the story of your project? Who's involved? Where does it take place? What does it do? Who's it for, right? The narrative is the means by which you tell that story. So that could be your elevator pitch. It could just be talking to someone at a bar. It could be making a play about your story. It could be making a blog post about it. It could be a social media campaign around it. It could just be a tweet, right? There's all these different ways in which we can tell your story through different narratives. And so separating these things conceptually is going to be really important, because it allows you to think really critically about both of them in separate contexts. Often we go, I got to put together a social media campaign. Where do I even begin? It says, actually begin from the story first. It's really going to help inform how you tell it and to what audiences and for what purpose, right? I love this picture. This is a picture of all of the history of the entire universe from now till its eventual demise, right? This is all of time and all of the universe explained in one little picture with a couple of pixels. Isn't that incredible, right? again, the story is everything. The narrative is a single picture. But we can also flip that. A whole moment can be told over pages and pages and pages. This is all excerpts from Moby Dick, actually, where he walks down the stairs in this tavern before they go sailing or something like that. I remember it being very boring when I was in high school when I had to read this. And I just remember, why do they keep telling the same stupid 1 minute over like a whole chapter of a book? But you can see all of time in a picture, a single second over pages and pages, right? The difference between that narrative and the story are very, very stark. So that's just something just conceptually when we're framing this up. And then going back to our cute little flannel graphic, we can think about your project, your history, your community, putting this all together in something that we'd like to call a playbook. And Westlake is going to explain what that means in a second. That is what we're calling your story, right? The story of this project, the story of the people that it impacts, the story of the culture that it impacts and includes and elevates. And the narrative is different. The narrative is this cute little PJ set that we'll sell to you later. No, I'm just kidding. The narrative are the websites, the socials, the blogs, the grant applications, the convening, the workshop that you're going to do, the sitting down at a bus stop and saying, what did you do today? Oh, I did this. That's the narrative of the story, right? Getting that story tight first is really going to be really, really important before you start to actually create that narrative around it. Does everyone kind of understand that concept between the two of them, right? I'm going to pass it over to Westlake to talk a little bit more about what the playbook actually is. This is just a thing we like to call a playbook. It could be, you could call it 1.5 million things, but this is something that we like to call a playbook. Westlake, what is that?
Oh, funny you should ask, Tom. Yeah, it's when we were coming up with this, we do this for pretty much every client that we ever work with. And we started off calling it a Bible. And then we realized we didn't really want to call it a Bible because, that leaves out some people who don't use that type of book. So we decided to call it the playbook. But basically, it always breaks down in the same way. So if you're an organization or you're a project which is made up of multiple organizations, you have got a story to tell. And then once you have figured out what the story is, then you turn it into the narrative, as Thomas has shown us in the last few slides. So the main things that the playbook is going to do is give you the raw material and the content which you can gather from all your partners and sign off in one place. And then you can go and create the PJs and the socks and the other things, which are your social media, your website, your everything else. If you've got everything kind of created in one place, we operate this methodology that we love called create once, use everywhere. So then you don't have to have version control over every tweet or every social media post or every talking point or every deck. You've got it all in one place that everybody has weighed in on and agrees on. That can then be iterated. We recommend about every 6 months. Is this still fit for purpose? Is it still describing what we do? Because we all know we get a grant sometimes and then it can morph and it can kind of change. And sometimes you end up making changes with the funder and sometimes it just changes the way that you end up operating that due to various reasons and kind of environmental things that can happen to us. So the main things in the playbook is going to be coming into it with like a bit of an elevator pitch as though that you've already just made. So it's like an executive summary. What is this thing? Why should anyone care about it? Like, tell us a little bit about that. Then what's the history of it? It's kind of like, is it the histories of the organizations who are involved in this project? Is it the history of the project itself? If it's an ongoing project, not a brand new one. If it's a brand new one, we're going to write the history as we're going along because you're starting from minute one. And then what's the mission of this? What are the goals of it? How are we going to do what we say we're going to do? And then really honing in on why this matters and why anyone should care about it, because obviously you care and your stakeholders care, but how do we get other people to care? It's also about who we're serving with this project. Who is our audience? Who are our stakeholders? Who is it local? Is it geographical? Is it a group of people? And then thinking about what's going to happen as a result of you receiving this grant. What will the programming be? What will the end result be, the deliverable be, if there is one? And then it's kind of like just getting your ducks in a row, thinking about, well, what is the plan? You've got this funding for X amount of time. This is what you want to try to achieve by end date. And so then how do you work backwards and what are the milestones to enable you to achieve what you want to achieve? And then just really nuts and bolts about the budget, about funding, who's funded you in the past, what you're going to go for in the future, other funders and partners, and then the team and the bios of the people that are working on this. And so maybe it will have its own website and its own life. Maybe it will be incorporated within multiple websites. Maybe it won't have a website. Maybe it will be, you know, a series of press articles, or it could be all manner of things, but it will likely be that you will need to like do new grant applications at certain points in time. So all this information, as many of you, well, all of you know, you've all been in the mill of looking for funding. Funders are looking for all kinds of, you know, information, having you jump through lots of hoops, and having this information in one place signed off by everybody, it's just going to be very helpful for you. Tom, have I covered everything on the playbook?
Yeah, I just want to underscore what you said before. This sounds like a lot of information, and it is. And I just want to really, valid, this is a lot, but it's really getting all of this into one little spot here, right? Before you start to really get all this out. That doesn't mean you can't start a social media program tomorrow before you get your playbook. Of course you can. You know a lot of this stuff intuitively, but really getting this down with the people that you work with is going to be helpful, because it makes all of that cutting into pajamas really easy to do, actually, and really logical, frankly. And we'll show you some examples of that in a minute. The last thing I'll mention, I just want to underscore the format of this thing. I know it sounds silly to talk about format. Don't make this into a PDF. Don't hire a graphic designer to make your playbook. This should be a scrappy Google Doc that you come and visit, and there's comments and strike throughs and weird color coding. And it's supposed to be a breathing, living animal, because it's going to be, because your project is a breathing, living animal, right? And so it has to be doing that, and you should be revisiting it frequently. So just as a thought, Google Docs are a godsend, because they're just these things that we can work with, because this project is necessarily collaborative. That's my 2 cents on that. But now we're just a heads up, we're going from this playbook, and now we're getting into making some PJs. I know everyone's excited about that part.
So what can we do with the where can our PJs go live? So if you think back to that graphic, we've unraveled the ball of yarn, which is all of the things. We've made it into the lovely blanket, which is our story. And now here we go to the narrative. So now we're able to tell stories. We're able to say, we're going to spotlight and highlight one person who we work with. We're going to highlight one aspect of the project. We can do that across social media. On the website, you can keep your website updated and frequently refreshed with lots of new content as it comes in. You can reach out to press and PR. Local press are always very interested, especially when national funders fund in, especially in smaller towns, in rural towns. They're often looking for content. And so, you know, a large grant from a government agency is often a good news hook for them. You could be speaking at a conference, you could be a keynote, or you could be delivering a workshop. How do you get in about your project, and how do you become a kind of thought leader in your field to be able to deliver best practice about this discipline that you are engaged in? You might be writing op-eds or a blog post or a white paper. And all this content that you've gotten in your playbook can just be lifted and put into these things, and obviously made tailored for the specific audience. As Thomas mentioned about word of mouth, it's kind of, you know, how do you talk to people that you meet at a conference or at a party, or, you know, when you're trying to explain to people what you do all day, every day. It's really important to like have it kind of nailed down. And then sometimes the art itself, the culture itself, if you're doing a mural, or if you're doing a incredible, the thing that Ria was doing, you know, that kind of, the art itself can speak. It's a communication channel in and of itself. Tom, did you want to add anything on that, or did you want to jump on to the next?
I think I can go into the examples, Wesley.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Awesome. So
and just before you say that, Tom, I am sadly having to leave it in a few minutes, because I have to go and take my son to his open day for his 3K placement. So I really appreciated meeting you all. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand back to Thomas now.
Cool. Thanks, Westlake. So let's give it a little bit of an example. I'll say this is a very removed example from our town. It's supposed to be a little bit silly and tongue-in-cheek. So just wanted to say that first. let's think about a project I think Westlake mentioned before about butterflies. It's within our brand, so we figured we'd put some butterflies on here. So we have a clever and catchy title about the butterfly project, whatever that actually means, a quippy subheader to learn more about butterflies, where is it, what it took place, all this stuff. This is an example of a case study, right? We might make something like this to put in a PDF. We might just make this to put on the side just so we're all aligned about what we call the project, where it goes, what the dates are, who did it, all that kind of stuff. This could be your full art time project. This could be a workshop. This could be a really cool artist. This could be the mural. This could be the kids you got together to make the mural, right? This could be anything. And so this is just sort of the vessel for the narrative, if that makes sense. And this is kind of getting everything ready to get cut up into some PJs. So right now I'm going to use the butterflies as an example, but I hope you can apply that to your own project as we go through this example. Hot take, moths are just goth butterflies. So this is a blog article I made up that really just kind of showcases, right? This is a simple way that we can say, okay, here's the project about butterflies, and now I'm going to do an opinion piece about this for my blog, right? Really, really simple. And it's a way to showcase this in its media form because it's fun, it's silly, and etc. Right? So maybe in this case, if you had, let's talk about, say, a mural project, for example, maybe you'd write a blog post about how difficult it was to curate the content for it. Or maybe you talk about how exciting it is that you found this amazing artist that you want to showcase, and you can talk about them in an interview format in this blog, for example, right? You could also make it into a really inspiring quick tweet, and butterflies are just so inspiring. I don't know, whatever. But maybe it's a quick tweet about how incredible the artist was, or maybe it's a good quote that a kid said while they were making that mural, for example, right? Again, it's the same story. You're saying the exact same story over and over again about one aspect of your project, just in a whole bunch of different ways. This is how your editorial calendar writes itself. You say, what's one thing that I can just strip apart into a bunch of different places across social media, blogs, newsletters, press, conferences, things like that. A Facebook post. Is this a moth or a butterfly? Someone will debate in the comments, I'm sure, right? Something silly and quick and engaging on Facebook, right? We all know how this works, but again, it comes back down to this first slide of we got the story down pat, we agreed what the story is, and now we just kind of go ahead and cut it into the little different pieces for different types of media. They're all coming from the same story. They're all just for just different types of narratives, right? I hope the butterfly analogy actually works and you can kind of think about how you can start applying that to your own project. And what a great segue. Once again, let's try to test this out, folks. This is your last writing exercise for the day. I want to just thank you in advance for doing so much brain work with us. Take that piece of paper back out. No one's going to look at it but you. I want you to think about a person, an aspect of your project, an event, a process, anything that you'd like to shout out, something that's cool or interesting about your Outtown program. So go ahead and think about what that might be. Just pick anything. Don't think about it too hard. Is it the cool artist that you found? Is it the cool play you just wrote? Is it the cool mural that you want to start building? Whatever that thing is, just go ahead and think about that just for the sake of this exercise, right? Now let's get creative. I want to encourage you to write down as many ways that you could tell that story and who you could tell it to and who you can tell any facet of it to. So social media, blog posts, podcasts. And remember, this is blue sky thinking. You don't have to worry about capacity, budget, or time. When have you ever had to do that? This is a moment for you to just be a little quiet, to get some music going once again. Blue sky thinking, one aspect of your project that you want to shout out, and try to do 10 different ways that you could shout that out across totally different media places. Does that sound okay to everybody? Think we could do that? All right, let's take about, I think we have about 5 minutes. Let's try that. Ready, everybody? Go ahead, get going. I believe in you. Might be more like 3 minutes, but it'll be all right. Gonna interject here. I'm so sorry. This is my soothing voice. Don't just write blog posts. Think about what is it about? Is it kind of interesting? Is it an interview? Right? What about that podcast? Can you do a podcast with this person? What might it be about? What's that hook? What would you want to listen to about your project? Is it a visual media? Is it press? Is it a conference? Can you do something with the artwork to get people excited? Blue sky thinking, folks. You're all amazing, creative people. It's time to apply it. got about maybe 2 minutes left. See if you can get to 10 ideas. And if you got to 10, go to 15. Just throw them out, even if they're terrible. No one's going to see this piece of paper. If you're stuck, think about all the ways that you've experienced media in the last week. Movie, Facebook, TikTok, blog post, radio, book. About 30 seconds. Try to squeeze out 1 or 2 more ideas. And fade out. Oof. First of all, everyone, you're going to take your right hand and raise it, and you're going to go ahead and turn it around, and you're going to pat yourself on the back. That was a lot of work. Good job, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to unshare my screen. This is just a how'd you do slide. So Gally, if you can go ahead, you can spotlight me so we can see everybody in the room. So if you want, go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen and go to gallery view so you can see everybody, just to get a good chance to see everybody else in the room. Thank you for doing that, by the way. That's a lot of work, and we're asking you for a lot of labor today, and I hope it was just a good little way to get you excited. A lot of times we get clients at Flannel and Blade who say, we want you to help us with social media. We want to help you with a thing. And that's often the times that we get the most excited. And we often say, stop before you do that. Let's take a step back and think about your story first. This narrative tends to be the exciting part. But oftentimes we get bogged down in the story where we forget how exciting the narrative stuff can really be, right? We can think about how fun it is to think about what would a little video with an artist look like? What would it look like to have, share stories through the children that you're working with or through the community members you're working with, et cetera, right? I hope that actually gets you excited rather than scared, because it can be exhausting because you just wrote down, $50,000 worth of content, I bet, right? And you're like, oh God, I got a project budget and this, that, the other. That's okay. That's okay. We'll take it one step at a time. Before I ask to share out, I just want to say thank you for writing down 10, 15 ideas. I used to work in a design school. I come from a landscape architecture background, believe it or not. And I used to work with grad students where we said, they put down their first idea and said this, or undergrads did this. First idea, they said, this is it, this is the best idea. And I said, write down 9 more, because 2 things will happen. One is you'll totally verify that your first idea was the best, or more likely you'll find another better idea after the next 10. And sometimes writing down crappy things, and as Westlake said, a great activity, take a crappy piece of paper, crinkle it up, and then write on it, because your ideas are great and they're also not precious. And sometimes just writing them out really helps you get these out. Rapid prototyping. Yes, I love this. So I just wanted to ask if anyone, we have a couple minutes, not too much time, but maybe 1 or 2 people, would you mind unsharing mind unmuting and sharing a bit about any ideas that you thought of that you're excited about? Anyone want to share something? Who thinks they have a really good idea from what they just brainstormed? Or even maybe a really bad idea that you just want to throw out there because you thought it was silly and fun. Anyone want to be brave?
I enjoyed this last exercise. Well, all of them, but really this last one, because it makes you think of, we've gotten into the, well, I guess general exercise of having this formula. And for certain projects, we think of, well, the press release and certain amount of posts and this and that. And this other exercise kind of makes you think a little bit outside the box. Maybe you want collabs or takeovers or something that other people do that you don't think about for yourself, but might want to try out.
Yeah, thank you, Brenna. Oftentimes the story should inform the narrative, right? Would Moby Dick be best if it were originally written as a screenplay, for example? I don't know, maybe wrong timing of the century, but you know what I mean, right? It was beautiful as a book because it made sense as a book, for example. And so I think oftentimes your story should inform the narratives in which you speak. And there should be a bunch of kinds of them. But yeah, oftentimes we get in those ruts about like, okay, we got to do a weekly social media post. What are we going to do? Take a second, think about that story, and then get excited about the narratives. I think that's a good approach for that. Anyone else want to share? Thank you so much, Brenna, for doing that. I appreciate that. Yeah, Kat.
I just wanted to share that while the time aspect is really like alarming sometimes, it can be really helpful at this phase because it's like, what do I say? It's this.
Yeah, oftentimes, like when you think about a social media calendar, and certainly, and this is a little plug to get some office hours with Flannel and Blade at some point down the road, but we can help you think about a social media calendar, for example, and it's really not that complicated. You go, we want to talk about 5 things, and those 5 things can be sort of spread out over 5 weeks, and it's really easy just to say, this is it, this is the story, and you tell it, and that's your content. And I know you all have incredible stories to tell, otherwise you would not be in this room right now. So the stories are there. It's just a matter of getting them together and being able to share them out really easily. And so sometimes going back to your basics and your roots is a way to get you motivated to get that content written. Any last thoughts before I hand it back to our friends at LISC? Cool. Well, I just want to say thank you so much today for showing up at this workshop and for sticking around for an hour and a half. I appreciate that. Also for doing work today and playing along with us. We really appreciate it. I really hope this isn't the last time we see you folks. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Maya over there at the NEA, and she's going to kind of wrap us up here. But just once again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Thomas and Westlake. This was great. And just want to share some thoughts from our director of creative placemaking at the NEA, Jen Hughes. And she couldn't join us today, but she wanted to be sure to extend an extra special welcome, particularly to some of our newer grantees that joined today, and let you know that welcome you into this fold with this cohort of just pretty exceptional peers in this space of creative placemaking, and to be sure to recognize that this TA process is the vehicle by which we can have these kinds of collaborative engagements. And so we're really hoping that you'll sign up for the newsletter and engage with the TA program through LISC. And I just want to turn it back over to Kati, who's going to share some ways to connect moving forward. So again, congratulations on your award. Thanks so much, and welcome to this space.
Awesome, thank you. So I dropped the link for the subscription to the newsletter in the chat. Please feel free to use it. That's how we got we got this workshop out. And you'll find out about future events there too. I'm also dropping a link for a Google form for you to fill out if you are interested in a consultation with folks like Flannel and Blade. We also have a great team who is willing to step in and kind of troubleshoot with you all individually on one-on-one basis, or just email me, cmorales2@lisc.org. And I'd be happy to connect you all. I'm not sure if we had a last slide, but our next event is scheduled for, yep, there we go, thank you. Office hours with the resource team members, get to know them. It's scheduled for Wednesday, August 17th. Please check your emails. We'll be sending out links and more information as we get closer to the date. So we are so excited. Thank you, Gally. So if you could take a second here to just fill out 2 questions. We want to make sure that we hear from you. And feel free to also use the chat. I see some of you already left some comments, so thank you. So we'll see you at the next one. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week and have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.